me set up?
We are going to after time. I will come try to help you in a second. All right. Welcome, gang. You guys, I hopefully at this point know us. And these are first. Sorry, gang. These are first station for the first day of John doing the lightning talk, and a big thank you to Stout. They bought food. So. Okay. I'll let that again. But let's get John hooked up.
We're gonna have a word from the sponsors. All right. Sorry.
They're going to come up and speak.
When? After that talk?
Go. Have them go right now.
Whenever. Okay, I'll do after later.
Okay.
All right.
All right, you got your lapel on.
I got my lapel on. We good to go?
Yep.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's John. I am a developer at Autodesk, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about Roslyn Analyzers in Visual Studio. So,
Close the doors, please.
so I use the word Roslyn and the word analyzer. So what exactly is Roslyn? Roslyn is the code name for the rewrite of the C#.NET compiler, or the actually C# MVB compiler. This project was started back in 2011, I think, and it was released officially with Visual Studio 2015. So this has been in the product for a couple years now, and it provides a whole new set of APIs that are available to do things like code refactoring and code analysis, things that like ReSharper is able to do. It does a lot of those similar things. So an analyzer is a design or a build time check of your code that can check for all sorts of various things that you might want to check for when you're building your code. You can check for things like style. If your team has agreed that tabs are better than spaces or spaces are better than tabs, whatever your side of the agreement or argument you guys are on, you can check for that. You can check other team standards, like if you guys prefer having camel casing and underscores of private member variables, all those kind of things, an analyzer can check for that. Security vulnerabilities. There's analyzers out there that will check for things like SQL injection. So if you use a lot of SQL in your code, there's analyzers to help you with that. And potential bugs. There's analyzers out there that can look for off-by-one errors. If you're checking an array or an enumerable, make sure that you hit all the elements in the enumerable. So when I look at code like this, I've got, this is code that might come in for a code review. And I'm looking at this code. I'm going to start looking at things like, well, there's a little extra space there. There's not a line between these two methods. There's an extra line here. I'm spending a lot of my time focusing on the formatting when I should be focusing on the business logic. So with analyzers, the developer's view of this code will go from this to this, where it starts underlining things and finding things that are incorrect in the code. And before you even check it in to get code reviewed, you're going to fix a lot of the problems that you have. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into a demo here of a few different analyzers that are available to use. So I've got Visual Studio here. So the first thing I'm going to cover is how do you get an analyzer? Where do you get the analyzers? How do you use them? So analyzers are available via a few methods. One is Visual Studio extensions, which you can just install from the Visual Studio store. But the most common way is through NuGet packages. So in this example here, I have two sets of analyzers enabled. I have the Sonar C# analyzers and StyleCop analyzers. These are two just open source community analyzers that are available to use. They provide a whole wide range of functionality, and I'm going to go through a few different instances of those now. So I'm going to go back to this class that we were looking at before, and you see that's got all that underlining in it. I can select here, let's say, the name field, and I get the light bulb over here on the left-hand side. The light bulb tells me that there's something wrong, something to do. I can click on the light bulb, and it shows what is called a code fix. So this analyzer, SA, right here, this SA1028, says you shouldn't have code that contains a trailing white space. And there's even a fix that says, hey, you can fix this code just by clicking right here and fixing the code in line. But if I hover over here, I also have the option to fix it within this document, within the project, or within the whole solution. So if I enable an analyzer like this one, I can just have it enable it, go fix my entire solution, and all the problems that apply to that analyzer are fixed within my solution. So another rule here that we have is this one here. So I'm going to click on it, and hopefully it'll give me the light bulb here. All right, prefix reference with this. So this is an analyzer that says any member variables that you access from within a local function should be prefixed with this. I absolutely hate this rule. I don't want to see this dot everywhere I go. So if I don't agree with a rule, I can say suppress this rule. And I could suppress it right here in my source. And it'll use a pragma to suppress it, which is kind of ugly. Or it can do it in a suppression file. And it'll add a new suppression file to my project to say, for this instance of the violation, completely disable it. But I completely disagree with this rule just in principle. So I'm going to go over here to my, my project, and under the Dependencies tab, under the analyzers, I can go to Style Cop Analyzers. I know that's a Style Cop Analyzer because it's SA something, so I just know that that's the analyzer, and it's SA1101, so I'm going to go down to SA1101, and I can right-click on the rule. And when I right-click on the rule, I have the option to set the rule severity. And I can set the rule severity to default, which is a warning right now. I also set it to error, if I wanted this to be an error. But I actually don't agree with it, so I'm going to set it to none, which means that the warning is now turned off. So for all future this prefixes errors that would pop up, those are now gone from my solution. So I will not see those errors anymore. So as I said earlier, the Roslyn, the analyzers are part of the project build system. So if I look down here in my error list, you'll see that I have 4 build errors because I tried to build the project, but some of the analyzers prevented the build from actually happening. One of the errors here is this is the SQL injection one. So I have some code here which is vulnerable to SQL injection. Because you could easily just put a single tick mark in name or password, and it would completely break this query. So that's a build error on my system. And if I'm new to the code base and I don't know quite what the error means, a lot of the analyzers will provide help text that can help you identify the error. So this one, if I click on S3649, it's going to open up a web page that takes me to the help for that analyzer and gives me all sorts of information about the analyzer. It says what types it checks against. It gives you an example of some bad code, and it gives you an example of some good code here. So you can see it shows just how to fix your code in order to use SQL parameters in order to not have the violation, not have the security vulnerability in your code. So the analyzers can provide all sorts of useful information about your code and your code base and how to make it better. I just went through this enabling a whole bunch of these in my solution, and I started out I think with 500 errors, and just using some of the fix-alls and the suppressions, I was able to get it down to less than 100 that I had to just go manually review and kind of figure out if I wanted to handle them or not. All right, so back to the presentation. So as you can see, analyzers are a very useful tool that are available in Visual Studio. They work cross-platform, so analyzers can work both in Windows and on Mac or Linux. They're part of the build system, so anytime you build a project on any platform, you are able to use analyzers, and they're able to prevent the build of your code if you so desire. A few of the analyzers I showed here, there's the Style Cop analyzers, which handle things like style, like spacing and tabs and all that kind of stuff. There's the Sonar analyzers, which are just kind of general purpose C# best practices analyzers. There's FX Cop analyzers. So if you ever used FX Cop back in previous versions of Visual Studio, they've started porting all of the FX Cop analyzers over to become Roslyn analyzers. They're not done yet, so some of the bigger rules are still not implemented, but it's open source run by the Roslyn team. They're actually doing this. And a couple more pieces. I have a blog post on this for creating your first analyzer over on my blog of how to start writing your own analyzers. They're really easy to do. I've written a couple for my team for handling dictionaries that have strings as the key, where making sure that you specify the case sensitivity of the dictionary. So that way, if you're storing things like file paths in a dictionary, you want to make sure it's case insensitive in order to handle both uppercase and lowercase. And the GitHub repo for this talk is available here. It's got the PowerPoint slides and the code that I was showing off that had all the violations. So that's it. I'm John. If you have any questions, feel free.
Thank you. Cool. So in between our lightning talk and our feature, we're going to let Stout have a quick word. You want to be on camera? We live stream. Oh, we'll hear so people can hear you. You can clip it or you can hold it or do whatever.
What's not a good idea?
It was.
Be a different feel. A little avant-garde.
Putting one in front of the picture.
You're good.
Yeah? Not blue.
Oh, yeah, we can put it back on.
Oh, but then it's got the
Just move over to the. There you go. Now it's pretty. Hi, everybody. I'm Peg Bogema. I'm the president of Stout Systems Development, and this is my colleague Samantha Ogletree, who's Stout's marketing and media manager. For those of you who are not familiar with Stout Systems, the company was founded in 1997 as a software development consultancy. We have many clients in many industries, but we specialize in complex web application development projects for scientific, engineering, and manufacturing firms. Since that time, Stout Systems has grown to include a staffing and recruiting practice, and we help some of the best companies in Southeast Michigan hire the best technical talent. We're pleased to have the opportunity to be the Gang Food sponsor this evening. We would be very glad to talk with any developer who's actively looking for work or considering making a change. For those of you who are sure that you're satisfied with your current employment situation, we would like to pitch our upcoming career management series. It's a seminar series. What comes to mind for most people when they think about career management is maximizing their earning potential, maximizing their personal growth, or maximizing their overall career satisfaction. There is one other thing that should come to mind, though, and that is maximizing their preparedness for career Armageddon.
Boom!
Put politely, career Armageddon is a dramatic and unexpected shift in one's employment situation. Career Armageddon can come about due to slumping economies or sagging sales, shifts in corporate strategies such as outsourcing or offshoring, bean counters trying to improve the bottom line by right-sizing, flattening hierarchies, and other buzzwords that translate into layoffs, shifts in technology direction that make one's skills unnecessary, mergers and acquisitions that make whole teams of people redundant. Fortunately, you can use many of the same career management techniques whether you are on offense or defense. The labor market is tight right now, especially for computer professionals. It is a perfect time to get in gear on your own career management, and Stout Systems is the perfect company to help you with that. You can get started by sending your resume to us at recruit@stoutsystems.com. Put Career Armageddon
Boom!
in the subject line. We'll know what to do. And you can also come to our career management workshops coming up in May. We're partnering with Grand Circus, and the dates will be available soon. Send an email to recruit@stoutsystems.com with the subject line Career Management Workshops, and we'll reply with the dates once they're firm. And you can follow us on our social channels or sign up for our news and announcements on our website. Thank you very much for your attention. We hope that our strategy of following the surest path to your heart through your stomach was a success.
Boom. All right. So a big thanks again to Stout for being awesome and buying his food, which is the only reason any of you guys come, let's be honest. Well, sorry.
Right.
I have heard of developers who literally never feed themselves. They just bounce from group to group to group every day.
I use this as my clock.
All right, cool. That's how it works. You're good. You got literally hours. All right.
Should I put this in my pocket?
Fix the camera.
Is this on?
Yes. It doesn't go to the room. It just goes to the live stream. So.
Is this thing on?
Yeah.
And plugs.
Just say, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? There is a plug up here, is there not?
Right down squid. Is that my squid or your squid?
Oh.
Your squid. Where the hell did you find my squid? In your backpack. Oh, no. That was in my car still.
You guys must work together.
Oh, you boys. I've only known him a decade.
Oh, yeah? A while? All right, now, plugging in. What's my options?
HDMI. HDMI and HDMI. We also have HDMI for those who are feeling adventurous.
I'll use HDMI.
Lovely.
If this doesn't work, I'll just use the HDMI.
So where did you plug it in?
Oh.
That looks good. Yep. I'm just making sure you got it into the capture. So you just gotta plug it in.
Oh, right. Well, this ought to be fun.
Wait, it'll do it automatically. I like how you just knew I was already concerned about it.
I can tell.
That's what I do. My job
Oh,
is to be
nice.
concerned. And to say
Am I-
boom.
So is there time? Want me to skip the lightning talk and save
No,
it?
you're good. You're
Okay,
good.
okay.
I wasn't concerned about time. I just wanted to know when to take less than 3
When,
hours.
Oh, it won't.
Okay?
It won't be
Introduce
3
our speaker.
I heard
Our
there's.
speaker.
I heard there's shields.
Randy has been kind enough to come and speak at Andre's behest multiple times.
Andre's request.
When were you-
Where is Andre?
Being Andre.
Where is Andre?
I don't know where Andre went. He's hiding. He's so tiny. We even have some children's size shirts for him. Yeah. No, that's not a joke. We literally have children's size shirts. Do you have any children that need shirts?
No.
Oh. Moving on.
But anyway, we done.
Our feature presentation.
Yeah, right. All right, thank you. Before the feature presentation, I'm going to do a lightning talk. I'll make it short and sweet, just on something that's outside the realm of app dev. Just because it's something to let you see what is fast track. What I think I'm going to do though, this was last second. You can tell. I want to introduce myself a little better. Who I am. So my name is Randy Pagels. I am an Azure technical specialist today. Does anybody use the cloud, development to the cloud? Anybody doing cloud type stuff? Yeah, a few, awesome. Sure. And so a little bit about me. Again, I've been with Microsoft for 12 years. We worked across the street in Southfield. That's where we used to have the gang meetings. Oh, we used to love that, right? So we moved downtown. Now we're in the Quicken Loans building. I probably shouldn't walk off the camera here. We're downtown now. So been there 12 years. I sold Visual Studio developer tools for quite a while, so I was their tech specialist for that. Then I went to Redmond for about 20 months and built a program that I want to give you a lightning talk on called Fast Track. I came back a couple months ago now, and I'm an Azure technical specialist. What that means is I work with customers across 6 states in what we call the Great Lakes region to help them with their application development needs, moving them into the cloud. So how the cloud can optimize application development, DevOps workflows, which is what my talk's about tonight, ALM, items around application development. So not technically in the code as it's so much as the services that you can connect together to provide a solution in Azure. So that's what I help customers do today. So that's me in a nutshell. Like the water, Visual Studio, used to play racquetball all the time. Coffee, craft beer, yeah. Oh, beer gets somebody's attention. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, moving along. All right. Friends enthusiast, yes. Friends is one of my favorites. All right. So when I went to Redmond, we started a program called Fast Track. Fast Track for Azure. So what is that? So Microsoft has an umbrella term. Should I move over this right here?
No, you're good. I'm
Okay.
just going to fix the camera.
Okay.
Go all over there if you want.
So Fast Track's an umbrella term at Microsoft to help onboard customers quickly. So we have a Fast Track for Windows 10. We have one for Dynamics CRM. We have one for Office 365. We did not have one for Azure. Azure's Microsoft's big bet, right, as our cloud technology. So when I was the first program manager hired to go to Redmond and help build this thing called Fast Track, so I just wanted to do a short little talk on what it is. A little proud of it. If nothing else, it's just an education thing. So continue eating. What Fast Track for Azure is, it is really simple. We have Azure engineers. We built a program around Azure engineers, hire them full-time to help customers. It's a free service for customers as long as they meet are eligible for the program itself, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the idea is customers moving into Azure to help kickstart that migration or that move into Azure. Fast Track for Azure can help. Again, you're assigned an engineer. A customer is assigned an engineer to help with whatever that workload is getting into Azure. That's the idea here. It's a remote service, so everything's done over via Skype or WebEx or whatever you happen to use. So engage with that. Engineers, pretty knowledgeable in the items I'll talk about in a second, but they can also do design reviews, network topology reviews, architectural design reviews. So again, customers that come to the Fast Track team for this. The idea is program managers will work with the account teams. So right now the account teams would talk about, hey, the customer wants to do X, Y, and Z. We need an engineer to help. Sounds great. Let's talk to the customer and get that going, right? That's the idea. The next thing is an engineer would engage and go ahead and start talking with the customer. It's just an interaction with the team, app dev team. Talk to IT pros quite a bit. The whole point there is they can figure out what their next steps are into Azure. And again, we're here to help, right? Fast Track team's there to help. And of course, ideally, they do in a dev test scenario. Then they deploy over to production. And again, engineers, think of an engineer as someone looking over your shoulder to help, right? They're actual Fast Track engineers. I work with many of them to build all the IP for this. These slide decks, this slide deck, that's what I was doing. The money slide, the criteria. So you have to be located in an English-speaking, one of the English-speaking countries. That's number one. Number two is about $5,000 a month consumption. So if there's something you're putting into Azure, lift and shift of VMs, data migration, app modernization, $5,000 a month spins the meters, an engineer can be assigned to you. So again, from an education standpoint, just if you hear the word Fast Track out there, you'll say, oh, I heard about Fast Track. Azure subscription, anybody have an Azure subscription? Phew, oh, that's awesome. And let me just talk about a couple solutions and we'll get on with the other talk. So when we first started, we just did IaaS, which is the infrastructure as a service. So supporting customers on educating them on pros and cons of compute, right? Compute, storage, and networking. Creating a virtual machine in Linux or Windows up in Azure, what's that mean? And what are all my options? What are my networking options? That was the first thing we did. Now we've expanded the program out to cover the other areas of Azure. Azure's a very, very, very big thing. It changes a lot. It's always updated. It's new. There's a lot here. But think of these as scenarios and the solutions that we support. So if customers come to the Fast Track team and say they want to do X, Y, and Z, it's usually virtual machines or, hey, I want to do data, and then we move it together. And that's what these support. So these are some of the things we support. Then there's futures. So IoT, we've heard that buzzword, IoT, going to be supported someday. Red Hat on Linux will be supported someday. I just found out today that API management will be supported on the Fast Track. And I mean supported by having an expert in the Azure engineering team that supports customers doing this. When I say supported, so it's out there. That's what that means. So again, it's a big program here. We'll make this short and sweet here. Again, Fast Track for Azure is think of that as a friction-free way to onboard into the Azure system. It's a no-cost service from Microsoft. minding that there's a criteria that's met. That's pretty much it. Low entry. All right. See, lightning talk had nothing to do with. All right, let's continue on. So this talk is about zero to DevOps. So DevOps is one of the things I help customers with as well. It's not the main thing, but it's one of the things to get, building those workflows and those build pipelines. And anybody doing what we call DevOps, or what we think we're calling DevOps? Yeah. Build, release, automated releases. Automating as much as you can. We'll skip this slide. So I'm going to talk about what DevOps is. I'll do an end-to-end demo of what our components are looking like for DevOps and what we support. As I was prepping for this demo, there's about 4 ways to do it. So I might sprinkle in the overlap of different ways to do it. Depends on what your favorite tool is. If you're a web portal person, there's that. If you're a tools person, there's that. How many people in here use Visual Studio? A lot. Other IDEs, Eclipse. What am I missing? Notepad, IntelliJ. Any Java developers? Probably in the wrong meeting, wrong user group. Okay. See, Andre, where's Andre? He would have liked that. I'm gonna give him a hard time. So DevOps, the meaning of DevOps, Microsoft DevOps. A good friend of mine, Donovan Brown, is a DevOps program manager. But he put this statement together, right? It's union people, process, and products, not process, products. And the whole point here is the continuous delivery of value. If nothing else from this night is value, delivering value. Not delivering features or bug fixes, delivering value in a repeatable manner. That's the short term of what DevOps is. How quickly can we repeat and deliver value to the end users? And it comes with its process, right? There's a development side of the house on the left, planning work, developing and testing work. Then generally, used to throw it over the wall to production, IT pros to build, deploy that code out, of course, and then monitor its health, and the whole cycle repeats. Anybody seen this slide before? A little bit. Probably slideware.net. Team services. I'm curious about where people store their code. Using Git, GitHub, Team Services, Team Foundation Server. Yeah, all the above. USB key. People probably still do that. I will be showing some of the team services. It's one of our, it's actually an Azure SaaS, a software as a service offering for customers. And, but what I wanted to clear up is it's not just source control. I hear that a lot. Visual Studio Team Services, it's got the word Visual Studio in it. It must be .NET only. It must be Microsoft only, and that's couldn't be further from the truth. It's not just about source control, right? The idea is everything you need to create a piece of working software and bring it to life. That's the whole idea. Everything from planning, agile, backlog management, scrum management, version control, of course, is right there. Build automation is there. Release management is there, of course, and tracking and collecting telemetry from the application for the development team. Everything in between. Time permitting, I'll show you as much of that as I can. And I will be aware of the time. What time do these meetings usually end? You guys come every week? Or every month, I mean? 7:38. Perfect, thank you. So Team Foundation Server is a product Microsoft built in 2005 called Team System back then. We renamed it since then. But it was hard to install. But in a nutshell, it was the source control system on premise. Team Services, just to show you the difference here. And I just noticed that this slide is out of date. We haven't called it Visual Studio Online in a couple years. I don't know what happened. So apologize for that. That's weird. Team Foundation. So Visual Studio Team Services is our cloud offering. And they pretty much are the same. One is Team Foundation Server on-premise. You, developers or IT pros, have to maintain the servers, patch the servers, install updates. Team Services is basically automatic. It's a web browser-based thing, which is I'm going to show you tonight. It's updated every 3 weeks by the product group. So product group of hundreds of developers and testers, they have these 3-week sprints. At the end of every sprint, they deploy out to Team Services. At the end of every 3 months, they package up an update and send it out for the TFS users on-prem. Same code, same exact code base. They build Visual Studio they build Team Foundation Server, they build Visual Studio. Our Windows 10 Office products, Dynamics products, CRM, Xbox Live products are all stored in Visual Studio Team Services. Our teams use what I'm about to show you at a much higher scale than my demo will be, but the point is they use it. And again, all these things in the center here, I'm not going to read them to you, but the basics, right? Source control, agile planning tools, Kanban tools. You have to keep track of your work. Some customers use Post-it notes all the way up to Excel spreadsheets or whatnot. But the key here is the continuous deployments and continuous builds. And I'll show you how easy this is to set this up. If you haven't played with it, you can play with it. It's good. So why is DevOps important? It's all about increasing the velocity, reducing the downtime, and deploying, again, that value to the customer, whoever your end customer is. Everyone has an end customer. Could be a different department, but everyone usually has an end customer, right? Most importantly is reducing the human error. I mean, how many people are building and deploying using PowerShell and batch scripts and have to manually pull out the Word document and follow instructions to deploy code or move things from one environment to the next? If that happens, probably no one in this room, but if that happens, there's fat fingering things that can happen. So that's the thing. You might hear me say this more than once or twice. Any platform, any language. So no matter what programming languages you're programming in, no matter what platform you're targeting, again, these tools I'm going to show you, some of which are free, you'll be able to use right away. So again, the name Visual Studio and says, oh, Microsoft.NET. I'm not a .NET programmer, right? I hear that all the time. But Java, Python, Ruby, you're deploying to containers, cloud, on-prem, IIS, VMs, doesn't matter. We support all the different platforms. I'll show you our build system now supports every platform that's out there operating system-wise. So I was glad to see that as well. Makes the story more compelling, right? These tools will manage the full stack. So again, you start out with an idea, a backlog of information, a wish list of things you want to get done on an application or a program. The TFS of the Visual Studio Team Services can help you with that planning of the work, breaking the work down, assigning the work, tracking the work, and you know how that goes, right? What about going out to an environment? So if you're going out to the cloud, there's things called Resource Manager, a template. I can templatize my environment, saying, hey, I need a couple of virtual machines, I need IIS installed, I need a certain version of the .NET Core or .NET Framework installed, I need port 80 open, whatever the recipe is for that environment, you can put it in a script. So when you deploy, the script runs and creates this environment on the fly every single time. When you're done testing, you break it down and throw it away. These are just things you can do. You can mix and match these. It's not like all or none. Desired state configuration is another technology part of, it's not a cloud thing, by the way, but it basically allows, before code is deployed to a machine, to make sure that machine didn't drift or somebody made a setting change or whatnot. So this desired state configuration will go through and make sure all the settings are correct, the proper versions of software is installed ahead of time prior to deploying code. So that's a pretty cool feature as well. And of course, NuGet, John mentioned NuGet packages. Whatever your binary of choice is to update NuGet packages, or what I'll use, and I'll show you tonight, updating your application with NuGet packages is good. Configuration, anybody mess around with web.config files and trip those up before? Yeah? Yeah, web.config probably number one I've seen and heard. Moving, worst case is connection string, forget to change it from my dev machine to a production machine, worst case. So the idea with configuration application is web.configs, to be able to tokenize the items in whether it's logon, whether it's connection string. Most importantly, connection strings. But you can tokenize that and then basically you swap it out and change it at deployment time. It's flawless, it works great. There's no fat fingering anything there. What about data? Most apps I know of have data somewhere, SQL, Oracle, something. So if you're using Visual Studio, there's tools called the SQL Server Data Tools, SSDT, and they're built into Visual Studio 2017 these days. Anybody using 2017? Yeah, awesome. Anybody using the data tools? Great. That's one of my favorite tools. I got a lot of favorite tools though. But the data tools allow me to manage, it basically allows you to manage your database schema as code. I can version control my database schema. And it gets built and packaged like the app built and packaged and deployed together, which is cool. I can roll that back. I can cherry pick versions of it and send it out. The app knows what version of the database and it stays together with these tools. What's nice about the backpack or the DAC pack, which is not on there, it comes with data. And the way we deploy is there's post-deployment scripts to say, okay, populate some test data in here. You can create the database and then, of course, add some rows of data. You always have to have some sort of test data, right? Testing is also important to do. Again, part of the DevOps process here is automate as much as you can. And I'm careful not to say automate everything. You cannot automate everything, and probably shouldn't automate everything, but you should automate as much as you can, especially all the places that are, whatever causes you the most pain, start there. Just automate whatever you can. Testing is one of those. So if you're running a web app and you can create some GUI UI, I won't say coded UI. I'll have to update this slide. I use Selenium testing for for basically UI testing. In a nutshell, though, just record a user basic session and have that load. You can actually run that test automatically with every release. It gives you the thumbs up, thumbs down, pulse check on the application, make sure it's working all right. There's web testing, of course. Web testing is more scenario based. I can run those from multiple places in the world, measure latency, measure timings, measure event logging goes on with that. And then, of course, we all know what load testing is. Hey, I'm going to send 500 users at this website for a half hour. See if it stands up or you knock it down. So all automated. So again, time permitting, I can show you I'll show you where these pieces go when I'm talking about this. Microsoft Test Manager, again, manual testing. We keep track of the manual test cases, and that is what it sounds like. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. A lot of customers I talk to use Excel for that, to track that. VSTS, of course, helps with that as well, and that's where it came from. You can actually import, export back and forth from Excel to that as well. But it really, truly is here's the steps. A tester will go test things, and it records. Actually records the success or the failure of those tests as it goes ahead. This is during the release, yeah. I'll point that out when I bring it up. Yeah. That's why I was saying automate as much as you can, like UI testing, load testing, performance testing. But you really can't/shouldn't automate the manual testing. I would argue you can't, you shouldn't. You want a thumbs up from somebody that visually, with a human interaction, looks at this thing and says, yeah, it looks good, or no, it's not good. That's where, well, funnily enough, approvers right there, right? If you're moving from a dev environment, and let's say you're going to put it into a QA environment for the QA folks or whoever that is, to validate that code is good, it worked well, this is the release piece that would wait. They basically stops and waits for that approval, and that's manual processing would be happening there. And of course, performance, telemetry, diagnostics, application insights. Anybody hear of application insights? Yeah. Awesome. And I was going through this demo earlier today, and what I did yesterday, because I showed some of the stuff to customers, it changed overnight. So we update our Azure updates frequently. So don't get too comfortable with the same way, right? But I'll show you where that's at. In Visual Studio, they updated it. Like I said, I tripped across that today. Anyway, Application Insights is all about collecting telemetry from your application. For free, you can collect a lot of information, which I'll show you some of that tonight. If you want to go deeper, you can install the App Insights SDK into your code. And again, any code, doesn't matter what code you want. Hopefully you all have the code, because if you don't have the code, there's ways to collect telemetry as well. But ideally, you'd have the code, all right? All right, so far so good? Is the pace good? Not going too fast? All right, we're almost to the demo part. So the DevOps process, I just like to talk about this a little bit. It comes in four quadrants, right? Planning and tracking your work. You're going to create a backlog, show you that, agile tooling, creating tasks, break those tasks down, assign them to testers, assign them to developers, program managers, whoever. Allows you to track that, but it's very important to keep track of your work, and there's a lot of things you can do from that point. And again, it's just about managing the work you have there. Of course, unit testing, coding, code tools. There's some of the code tools John was showing in Visual Studio. Of course, I'm a big fan of Visual Studio as well. And version controlling your code, that's why I asked about where that would be. Preferably in a shareable system somewhere would be really, really nice. And of course, building your system. Obviously, F5 build it on your desktop's always good, but to have especially when there's multiple developers involved, much better to have an automated build system somewhere. Even if it's on a server and under your desk, that's okay. Validate that as well. And most customers I talk to, this is where we fall down right here, the release piece. They can build it, they can code it, they can manage their work. That's all working pretty well. It's the releasing piece, it's the deployment piece across multiple environments, managing the web.config files and the schema changes and the test data. and then measuring those, it gets a little complicated, right? So that's what release management is supposed to help with. And that's what that piece is, and I'll talk more about that when I show it. And of course, collecting information about, whether it's trace logs or diagnostics from the application. App Insights can go ahead and, it's almost just part of it now. When I show you, I'll create that. It's just part of Visual Studio to add App Insights. It's not there automatically, you have to add it, but it is built into 2017, that's why I asked about that. Now, all these things are done out of the box with Visual Studio Team Services. I'll show you where you get started with that if you wanted to go play with it. It is free, use it. Use it, I would suggest using it. Even little pet projects you might be working on, hey, use it, it's great stuff. I also want to mention that it's not just Microsoft's technology. We have partners out there, as you can see by all the pretty logos here. A lot of partners, a lot of different technologies that plug in that do different things. So we have, Jira plugging in for, if you want, the point of this slide is, if there's a piece that you're invested in, whether it's Jenkins or Hudson or Octopus Deploy or Jira for tracking your work, that's okay. VSTS is one of those plug and play things. You can swap pieces out. Use whatever you like of VSTS and continue to use whatever tools you use. That's what this slide is talking about. My point of this is that there's a lot of different technologies out there that you can continue to use. Of course, that comes with what we call an integration tax, right? It's I've had some customers switch off that and say, well, if VSTS is good, I don't pay for it. I'm paying whatever these cost. I might as well switch. It depends on what you're working on. It really does, because there's an integration cost, and then the third party updates the software, and you have to patch it, and it just work. So anyway, yeah, this is any platform. We did that already. So what I'm going to show you is this stuff. This is the DevOps workflow. I'm going to show. If you start at the very bottom left-hand corner there, right? Again, ideally as developers, you're working on code, you're checking code out, you're checking code in. Again, we don't care where you put your code. If it's in VSTS, great. There's a lot of benefits to moving into VSTS for traceability, and I'll show you that. But it doesn't really matter where it's at. You can continue to use your code wherever. Very important to have an automated build system. If things get checked in, they get built and compiled together, so we know if there's any problems, we can fix it right away. Then we can deploy out to, what I'm going to show you is an app, a web app. We work on web apps in here, mostly, people? Yeah? Awesome. I'm going to show you Azure and basically creating web apps. It's real easy and real simple. What I like to do is use deployment slots, though. As a developer, I'll deploy out to a developer. We call it a development slot. It's just like another machine. Think of it as another machine. You can bang on it, you can test it, and we can actually move it along to a QA slot. Things go well there, we do our performance testing, we do our manual testing. We get thumbs up, it can be moved to a production slot or the actual parent of the website. But it's built into Azure to allow you to do that very easily, and I'll show you that. UI load testing, have these done automatically. Anybody doing UI testing? It is a tricky thing if you do too much UI testing. It's brittle. That's what I want to say. If you record a lot of tests. So Microsoft has a lot of tests that when they build VSTS, every night it gets built, they run hundreds of UI tests on it. I think there's like 7,000 unit tests that run on Visual Studio when it's built too. It's just astronomically high. Yes?
Do they do that some sort of automated robot? How do they do that?
The UI testing? So we use Selenium. Selenium is, think of it as a page. What they do is create page objects for every page, and then they write code to call the individual objects in whatever order they want. So it's not a record and playback tool. You have to actually code it, but they're very efficient and very fast. Selenium code. Microsoft creates one out of Visual Studio called Coded UI Testing, which I would talk about that and say start using Selenium. I would recommend using Selenium over Coded UI. Coded UI is very slow and very sluggish. And what's nice too with Selenium is you can run the test and actually watch the browser do all the clicking. But if you're doing hundreds or thousands of those, it's called Phantom, Selenium Phantom JS, that allows you to turn the browser off and still manage all the clicks. You can run hundreds of tests in minutes. It's pretty cool. Selenium. Selenium is your friend. It's part of the NuGet package. You can add it to your Visual Studio piece. At the end of that, we swap slots automatically. So this is a built-in part of the cloud technology. Even if you're just developing something you want to play with in a website, man, use Azure if you can. And same thing with the database schema. That's what that lower right corner is. And then, of course, we monitor what we're doing. And that's just, again, built in. So I think it's time. Let's go look at some of this stuff. Right? Let's see if this thing's still up. All right, cool. VisualStudio.com is your friend. And Team Services is what you want to look at. Get it for free. The way it's licensed is if you go to the site, you create your own, basically your own tenant, it's free for you and for your friends. Seriously, free for your friends. Code, build, deploys, all there. You can use it for pet projects, whatever. MSDN users, anybody MSDN user license? Yeah, awesome. MSDN, free. As many MSDN people as you want to put on this team, you can. All licensed for free, right? So Microsoft doesn't make a lot of money with Team Services. It's not there to be the money maker. It's licensed the way you can create like a program manager, a stakeholder. Someone that doesn't code, there's a license for them too. You can also sign up for monthly. So yeah.
What if you don't have control over your source repository, your company's using SDN?
What was the first part?
If you don't have control over your source repository, your company's using SDN.
Yeah.
Do you still use this or not?
Yes. Yep. I'll show that. I'm going to walk through that demo. Yeah. Like I said, we don't care. This doesn't care where your code is. Yeah. You can't. We don't expect people to say, oh, take your code from here and put it into Team Services. It just doesn't work that way. Or don't use Octopus Deploy. Use the release management. It's much better. We don't. Microsoft's a new company now. We don't play that way. Question. So part of the MSDN benefit is to use Team Services or Team Foundation Server for free, as many as you have. I have customers with thousands of MSDN users that use it. It's unlimited. Free is 5 users with no MSDN. Those are just your buddies that are coding, right? They want to just use the system. That's 5. It will cap you at 5. Yeah. So it's 5 users plus unlimited MSDNs. Anybody else, there's a cost with it. So much a month. That's not that expensive. Yeah. So if you have an MSDN and you don't have Team Services, you should at least go play with it. I can't click it for free, but because I'm already signed up. But just click that. You just go to visualstudio.com, click it, sign up. It'll ask you for a name, so you put your last name in there or something cool. Come up with a cool name. It's globally unique. Yeah. It is a cloud service. Yes, it runs on Azure.
So we get cloud instances like repositories, storage, and something.
So Team Services uses Azure Storage, uses geo-redundancy, uses backup. It uses all the Azure services under the hood. So, but you here don't get access to that, not through Team Services. Yeah, it manages itself. So your source code is actually backed up and replicated 3 times, and across the Azure infrastructure. No, your app can have storage, but you can't get the storage here. No, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, yeah. So check that out. Let's go here. When you sign up, you'll get a page that looks like this. So I will start from scratch. I have some other things running, but I thought it would be nicer to just start from scratch and show you building this up. Thus the title 0 to DevOps. Otherwise, I would just call it DevOps. We just jump into something that's already running, like Mercury Health, but we won't do that. Let's go new. So when you sign up for an account, you'll have a blank page. Say you want to create a new project. First thing it's going to ask you is a name, of course, right? So I'm going to call this, we'll call it E2E demo. Yeah, my caps lock key was on, sorry. E2E demo. Give it a description. It asks what you want to use for version control. So Team Services provides unlimited private Git repos. So if you're on GitHub paying for private Git repos, you don't have to. You can use Team Services for free and have unlimited private Git repos. So just know that. I'm going to choose Git because it's popular. Also, it asks you what template you want. What I'm doing by creating this brand new project is it's a logical container for source, for builds, for releases, for the agile planning tools, for everything that you're going to do for that project. It's just a logical container is all I'm doing. I'm going to pick agile because it just changes some of the verbiage around what work items talk about, user stories, or Scrum or Scrum terminology. Just depends what your flow is. If you're using CMMI, aka waterfall. When I click create, though, remember I have no project here. It's from scratch. While that's doing that, I do want to show you the Azure dashboard. And what I want to do is just I'm going to create a website so we have a place to put this. Now, again, this is one of those, there's 4 different ways to do this. From Azure, though, it's called an app service. Again, this is part of the demo. I just want to make sure we have a place to put this website. App service, right? Web app. We all know web apps. Create a web app. In the way that the way the Azure is structured is we call it an app service plan that basically tells you about how much RAM the thing has, how many cores it has, how much storage that website has. You build that plan, and then you hang all these different websites off it, and they all use the plan. So I'm going to call this E2E demo again. Notice how it checks the app name. Now in Azure, we always append the Azure websites.net to the end of it, so it's globally unique. So you instantly know whether you can use that site name or not. And of course, depending on the plan, you can change the domain name. So again, if you have an Azure subscription, great. MSDN, you have $150 a month to spend on this. You can spin up a lot of free websites for $150. $150. I should preface that. It's $150 if you have Visual Studio Enterprise, MSDN Enterprise. MSDN Pro Professionals, I think it's $100 or $50. Anybody know? $50. You can spin up a lot of free websites for $50. Resource group. In Azure, it's a logical container for everything you're going to do in Azure. So now we have 2 of these logical containers that are connected. I can pick Windows, Linux. Here's the app service plan I talked about. We're going to just go ahead and create a brand new one. And what's nice, depending on where your customers are, I can pick the data center that I want this located at. It's all about latency. How quickly do you want it? So East US is Virginia. There's one in Chicago. I could have picked Central as well. I guess I could do that. Central's in Chicago. It doesn't really matter. Speed of light, right? Pricing tier. This will be the money slide. Before that scares you, I'll scroll down a little bit. These are monthly costs. These are by the and depending on your subscription, your company, the price negotiated, blah, 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 these prices change. So I'm logged in differently than you would log in. But what I'm going to show you is each plan you pick tells you how many cores and RAM you're going to get with that, hard drive space you're going to get with that, and also custom domain names. And the key on this one is deployment slots. So notice how it says 5 slots? 5 deployment slots. I'm going to show you what slots are. I can also go down to basics, which don't have any slots. But I could change the Azure websites.net to an actual custom domain name if I wanted to. So that's there. Also notice down at the free here. Now your shared infrastructure, but for a free website, it works fine. This one right here. So that's why I said you can get a lot of free websites for $50. Even this one, $10. I run a website called Team System Cafe. TeamSystemCafe.net on this exact plan, the $9.67 one, because I only have a $150 credit. I might have upped it. I don't think I did, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So for this demo, I'm going to pick a bigger plan. I'm going to pick this S2. So again, it's 148 if I run this thing, 24/7. Yeah. They don't do SSL? Oh no, the shared ones don't. You have to have your own, yeah. Yep. When I create that plan, now I'm ready to create the website called eDemo. Remember, that I would treat that personally as my production website. That's the production website. But when I deploy the code to dev and QA, I don't want to deploy it to the production website. I'm going to go ahead and create this. Doesn't take long. I did gloss over this other area where it says subscription. You log in, your subscription will be in the list. Yeah. Question?
Are there any landscape specifications
there, at some point, I'm sure there's bandwidth limitations, but there's no cap on it that I'm aware of. So the way this, if you haven't seen the portal, all your services are on the left-hand side. I could search for services. I happen to know these are app services, so let me go ahead and click app service button here just to show you some of the, you see that easy demo's built now. So I'm going to go into it. Now this is my website. This is where all my controls are. And like I said, there's about 4 or 5 ways to do almost everything I'm going to show you. I don't want to confuse matters, but you notice I have a website here. If I click that, it'll say, yep, you have a website, but you have no code running. There's nothing. I got nothing. That's what this is. Oops. Also, menu items on here. But what I want to show you is this area called quick deployment slots. Now, a deployment slot, think of that as an exact image of the website. All the controls, all the settings, all the connection strings, I can set that. So all I need to do is say add a slot. We'll call the first one dev. We can add another slot. We'll call this QA. And I like to keep the root slot as the production slot, right? So now you see these 2 slots running. If I go into the dev slot, it'll look exactly the same. So what's nice now is you have these isolations between your development environments. So again, if I were deploying the code to this area, if I click on this one, you'll see it just, the only thing that changes is hopefully Zoom it's working here. You see where it did the name dash slot name, dev, QA, staging, green, blue, whatever you're calling it. So now that I have those deployment slots, I'll leave this alone because I have what I wanted here. We could do a whole show on just this one. I won't do that right now. We just wanted to get some deployment slots. So remember back in the VSTS, all I said was, hey, create a new project called E2E demo. I picked Git. The next thing it's going to ask me is, I want to show you one thing, which is pretty slick here. Each of these, you can see at the bottom, each logical container you create allows you to put a README in here, which is like a wiki. What I'm telling it right now is just, hey, for Visual Studio, add the .git ignore. Anybody use a Git? Maybe love Git or just use it? Okay, you love Git, okay. No more questions. The .git ignore file basically just says, hey, don't check this in or don't make it part of my build. I'm not even 100% sure on that one, but I'll go ahead and edit this. This is like the landing page for a team that wants to know about this project. They can come here. So just to show you that it works, we'll just go like this. I'll say, yeah, that's my README. Cool. I'll commit it. Great. Update it. Now it's sitting here. So now I can go back to my dashboard. What I want to show you, and this comes up in various areas, created a brand new project with nothing in it. I updated my README. Yeah, big deal, right? The next thing it's going to say was, hey, you don't have a build for this project. Let's set up a build. So I'm going to jump into the setup the build. VSTS will walk you through the pieces that you need. And I know we don't have source code yet. We're getting there. But I'm going to follow this along. Set up a build. So back to the question in the back there, Subversion. It's asking me where the source is. It defaults to, of course, Visual Studio Team Services Git, which is fine. If you have it in GitHub or you have it in Subversion, that's fine too. The second one is Team Foundation version control is what that says. So I'll just take the defaults, ask me the team project. There's the one I just created. The repository is the E2E. It's called the master branch in Git. That's it. I didn't change anything. All I'm going to say is continue. Then it asks me for a template. It says, what are you deploying? Right? Any platform, any code. I can deploy a .NET Core. I can deploy ASP.NET. I can deploy Android. I can do Ant. I can do Maven builds. I can do Docker containers, and the list goes on. So very easy. I'm going to do this one, or Azure Web App. Sorry. Now, it set the build up for me. So let me just show you a couple pieces of this. Hopefully it's not as scary as it looks. Very first thing is, where is it going to be built? So Microsoft, part of VSTS, part of your benefits of using it, we have a hosted build server in the cloud. Compiles any .NET, compiles any Linux, compiles any Mac. That's a brand new one, Mac OS, for doing Android or for doing Mac builds. So they're hosted, and there's so many minutes. I think it's 240 build minutes a month or something. There's a cap. I just don't know what it is. But they're hosted for you. Just pick one. I'm going to pick this 2007. I also, part of DevOps is build it first, compile it, make sure everything's good, then deploy it. This put the deploy, if you notice this task here, think of this as a pipeline. The build is made up of tasks. This task deploys it out to the cloud. I don't want that, so I'm going to say remove it. And we'll get back to this one. You give it a name. I mean, I didn't really do anything. I'll just show you a couple things. Again, these tasks I can go in and add. Show you the anatomy of this. These tasks are open source tasks. Microsoft contributes to them. Third parties contribute to them. A lot of developers contribute to them. They pretty much are whatever you want to do. However you do it today. I haven't ran into a situation where you couldn't do it. You basically add the tasks in. You move them around to the right order, and they execute. So again, these are all over the map. From if you're deploying out to Docker, you're deploying out to Maven, you're deploying out to whatever you're having to do, you can do that. And you can actually narrow this down as well. So you can very easily just add the tasks and save the file. It's quite simple. If there's something you're doing like with PowerShell or Batch or something that's very unique, you can create your own task and add it to the library, which is nice, right? Everyone in your company can use it. A couple of things across the top here. Variables, if you're using a specific variable for a build, I can put those here, it's stored. Triggers are nice to know. I like to have continuous integration. When code gets checked in, which I'll show you, this fires off the build. Continuous integration. I want to know if something's failed right away. And other options. This one at the bottom is always nice to know. Create a work item. Remember, now we're in team services, so we have an area to keep track of our work. Create a bug if this fails so that a developer or whoever checked that code in can go fix this. The last thing I'll show you is the tests. Now, again, I just grabbed a template. All this stuff was filled out for me, right? But if you wanted to see, I like to, where is it at? This one right here, code coverage. It's nice to know the code coverage of the tests. Anybody doing unit testing? Or wish they were? Yeah, great. That's awesome. I usually hear, well, we want to, but a lot of maintenance goes with that. So I have a build. I'm going to go ahead and save it. There's nothing to build right now, so I won't run it just yet. And what I want to do next is actually go back to code. Now, from VSTS, this is my code. If I was pointing to another code repository, then it would show me that here. But since I'm in Team Services, there's no code here. So let's go look at how we can get some of this code. Notice in the upper right-hand corner, I can clone it. And in Git terminology, that's cloning that repo down into my local machine. My local machine happens to be a remote session, as you can see by the top. But the idea here is I can clone that down. Now, we support a lot of different IDEs. What's your flavor of choice? Eclipse, IntelliJ, Visual Studio, doesn't matter. I'm going to pick Visual Studio, of course. So let me clone that again. I'm going to say clone it in Visual Studio. What this will do is launch Visual Studio, connect Visual Studio up to GitHub, or Git, sorry, not GitHub, Git, and pull down that code, which is just a README file right now. Apparently, it timed me out and I have to log back in. This almost never happens, right? It was logged in earlier, but what can you do? There we go. Okay. So for Visual Studio users, Team Explorer is on the right-hand side, allows me to connect to my source control, right? And there it's telling me, hey, we're going to repo this. Great, clone it. So now it's cloning it. I'm going to show you something from new, but if you had existing code, it's just as easy to put the existing code in the cloned repo, and then you check it in, and then the flow starts happening. And that's all good. This usually takes seconds. Any questions? There we go. Now on the right-hand side, my Team Explorer, populated with all the different source controls that are here. Goes back to Solution Explorer. Hey, here we go, right? Now, what I can do now is I go here and say, okay, that's great. I want to do a new solution. I'll just create a new web app. Obviously, file new. File new web app. I'll just pick a web app. Same thing, I'll call this the end-to-end demo. Keep it all the same, and click go. Oh, well, ask me a couple more questions. MVC app, add some unit tests. That's great. Now remember, I'm local on my Visual Studio right now. Team Services doesn't know anything about this. So the idea now is to get this here. I want to show you how we're going to add app insights to it when I collect telemetry on this application. And what I'll do next is check it in. So for the Git users, so go ahead.
Are there tutorials on everything that you're discussing with us?
Yes. It is a bit much. It is. That's why when someone asked me about how long I'm going to talk, it's like, well, I have like 3 hours worth of stuff I could go through it, but how much will you remember? That's the question. There's a lot of great, I'll come back and speak again if they'll have me. There's all kinds of things we can just focus on one thing. There's a lot here. I'm trying to give you the high level, right? But yeah, I'm going to show you that when I'm at the end. But to answer your question, yes, there are a lot of getting started tutorials. Microsoft has revamped their docs. They call it Microsoft Docs. And there's docs on all this, step by step, pictures. Yeah, it's all there. I can give you some getting started stuff. Brand new app, Visual Studio, in here now. What I can do is basically say commit. Well, I wouldn't say commit here. I would actually go to here and say I have changes because I'm using Git, right? I need a comment. Nope. Now, if you're using true Git, you'd always branch and just check into your local repo. I'm going to cheat tonight and just push it right to master. You're not supposed to do that, so don't cringe. Push, commit, and push. Now, because it's connected to Team Services, it's pushing my code up to Team Services. And guess what's going to happen? We set up, what? It's going to build it, exactly. If I can go fast enough and jump over to it, wherever it is here, if I go, my menu at the top, I can go to builds because I created a build. There it is, you see it's in progress because I said I've checked that box, continuous integration. Anytime a developer or 10 developers or whoever checks code in, we're doing builds. Now there's lots of options in build to batch the check-ins. Again, I'm using the hosted build service that's up there. I didn't change anything. What's nice is the build system gives you the real-time information back so you can see it's going, what's going on here. It's going to run on a unit test because I told it to add unit tests. And then it'll give me the output. That's the idea. While that's working, let's look at something. I do want to show you the work piece. This would be a good time to do it. We'll come back to build. The work tab is where I would actually add a backlog item, and we'll keep this real high level. But I'm going to add user stories, right? Just whatever that is. Just whatever so I have, listen to my team's input. This is my wish list of things to get done. This is going to be just a list like you see in Excel. Now what I can do is also from here click, let's say we have the work, now we're going to break it down and assign a task to somebody. Well, I needed to create a build. Already did that, so I can check that off the list. And I need to create a release and whatever else I want to do. Now, this is a hierarchical list here. I can actually, again, we call it features or stories or whatever you want to call it here, and tasks and so forth. It's that hierarchical breakdown. Also, Kanban board. Anybody use Kanban board or played with it a little bit? Know about it? Okay. So Kanban board is here built into a lot of functionality. Again, we can do a whole talk on just this piece of the puzzle here, which we won't do. But I can also, from this Kanban board, go ahead and add tasks. So it's a real easy way to add new items, and it just keeps going, right? Also, when I'm ready to work on this, I can just pick it up, drag it over here, let go of it. Notice that it assigns it to me because I'm logged in automatically. If I was ready to work on this feature, I can say, okay, I'm ready. And the real way to work on using Git is you create a branch. You create a branch to do everything. I have a little bug fix. I have a feature. I create a branch. Create a branch. We make it real easy to create branches from here. So actually, I'll go ahead and create a branch. Yep.
Did it assign you automatically because you're the only one on there right now? Or if there were like multiple people on your team, you have to manually do it?
Yep. It assigned it to me because I'm logged in. But I can very easily change it to somebody else like Abel or Donovan, or it's because I'm logged in and I created the item. I could also go like this. And say this task is assigned to somebody else. I'll say Charles. And he'll get a note.
Mine doesn't automatically assign anyone. I have to do it manually.
Oh, it doesn't?
Yeah, I didn't know if the setting you selected or what have you.
No. What version are you running? The latest. That was a trick question. It's the latest. I think, what version are you running? That is odd. We can talk about that, or give me or email me. Okay, yeah. Oh, back to work. So let's just go ahead and look at something. I would go ahead and say, if I was going to work on this, whatever this task is, I would say go ahead and create a new branch. I'll call it a init branch. And it's going to branch it off master. What's nice too is I can say I will be working on additional, like creating a release. It's another work item. So now I'm correlating my work and tasks all together with this build. I'll say create the branch. And it goes off and creates the branch. Now let's catch up with our build. Let's go back and look at the build. I want to show you what that looks like. It was successful. If I click on the build name itself, and you have many of these build names themselves, if you click on that, it'll give you basically the history here. So we're 1 for 1, 100%. That's good. If I want to look at the output of it, I could click on the build number. And this build number you can change. Pretty much everything you see you can actually manipulate and change however you like. But the output, notice the output page. This is just a very informational. We had 3 unit tests, 100%. We had code coverage. Notice the associated change sets here. So now we're correlating change sets, work, who worked on it, what did they do, what line of code did they touch, what build is it in. This is a very rich report of information. Also notice at the very bottom where it says deployments, I don't know if you can see that okay. It's hard to see on my screen. It says no deployments. Hey, create a release. So again, Team Services will walk me through that. So let's go ahead and create a release. This is where I can take the code and push it up into my web apps or my web slots or whatever you're going to call them. Same thing. The build and the release are very similar with all these different tasks. Right? So I'm going to say it's an app service. It's an Azure app service. There's just a website. Again, I could go to Docker. I could go to wherever I want to go. And my first environment is called dev. And now it starts building this release pipeline. What do I want to do in dev? Well, before I move it to QA, which will be my next environment, I want to make sure there's an approval process that says me. This is just a cheat demo, but in the real world, you'd have approval from somebody in a group in case that person's on vacation. You assign a group to approve these things. And basically what the approval gates are is won't allow the bits to move to the next environment if somebody doesn't approve it. Also notice here the checkbox. You can have it so you can't approve your own releases, which is conflict of, not a conflict, but they'll always be approved. And the environment, I'm just going to show you this once, but every environment I want to go to has the pre and post approval processes. Before I go to let the code go, or after the code gets here, what do I want to do with it? We also have this thing at the bottom called quality gates, which says maybe you're doing a QA performance testing. You want to make sure the response time is X number of milliseconds, or hey, we're out. Don't let the code go through. You could put those kind of quality gates on it, which are automated. Remember I said automate as much as you can? That's an automation. Our VSTS team uses this for response time on the website. Obviously, the team, if it's too slow, go fix it before we release it into production. So that's what goes on with that. What's nice too is the task knows red. it's asking me, this dev environment needs some information. It turns red. I'm deploying. Where am I deploying, right? One thing I forgot to show you, I didn't want to put this, I didn't want to do the template. I wanted to actually create, I wanted to show you the plus. That's what I wanted to show you, sorry. I should have created a blank template. But with the blank template, I wanted to show you all the tasks that I showed you in the build are available in the release. So depending on where you're deploying to or how you're deploying, pick and choose, right? Slice and dice. We're going to deploy out to an Azure app service here. We'll go like that. You pick it, you fill in some information. What subscription are you on? It knows my subscriptions because I'm logged in. I'm going to pick that one. It's a web app service name. Oh, I forgot to say authorize. Thank you. Has anybody ever tried this before? Before, as in 6 months or so earlier ago, this was an absolute pain. You had to go get a personal access token and you had to install it. Here I can just drop the list down and click authorize. How great is that? It does persist, but I don't think it creates, I think they did away with that piece. It's just part of my login profile now. It knows I'm using the same login to Azure, that's why it knows that. But I don't think it creates a service principal. Because if I go to my links, it won't be there. We can check, I'll look. It does ask me about the app service name. I created one in Azure. I created the website app service called eDemo. That's what that is. Deployment slot. We put it right here in the task. What's the resource group? What's the slot you're going to deploy to? Remember I created 2 deployment slots? Dev and QA. So it's that easy to deploy out. Now, you could not use deployment slots and just create website 1, website 2, website 3. That works too, doesn't matter. I get asked, well, how does it know where the file is to deploy, right? The way the build system packages up a .NET app or an MVC app is I go here. And this is showing me from the build the drop location. There it is. So the build system packages it up. Now from the release system, I can just pick and choose my drops here. And that's all I need, and I can click Save. One thing I do want to show you that I did pop over. Notice on the left-hand side of the release, there's this little lightning bolt here, Enable Continuous Deployment upon success of a build. The build is continuous integration. The release is continuous deployment as long as everything's working well. That's what this is. I can also, from here, what's nice is getting it set up for one. All I need to do is say add, clone it, stamp out another one. We'll call this QA. I'll change this. All I'm changing, remember, all I'm changing is the deployment slot because it's the same app service plane. That's the same websites together. They're all connected. I just have to change one thing. And I'll go back. Now that I did that, of course, I'll click clone it again. We'll call this production. Change the task. Now, the difference with, if I'm using deployment slots, if you uncheck the box, it goes to the parent site, which is the production site. Now, I could create one called prod. I've seen that done too. That will work. I mean, nobody knows. It does just a matter of how you want to do it. So I have this pipeline set up. Let's go look at it. Notice the pre-approval processes. Also, top, I have variables. If you're using a connection string to a database to deploy code, I can put those in the variables here as well. So I have another app I do that with. Retention options and such. But let's just go ahead and let's make a code change because now that this is built, it's sitting here waiting. The build's waiting. The release is waiting. Remember the website. There's nothing out, right? It's nothing there. So let's go put something there. I'll go back to Visual Studio, make a simple, let's just make a simple change. If we're familiar with MVC, we can go to the home page. Anybody doing MVC? Fun stuff? Yeah. ASP.NET? Cool. All good. I'll just change the title. I'm just doing a simple code change. Of course, I'd right-click on the solution, and my process is to commit that. goes to here and says, hey, give me a message, otherwise I can't do anything, right? Change the title, and I'm going to cheat again. Normally I'd commit, check, submit, just all these extra steps because it's Git, but I'll just say commit and push. Now it's going back into the repo. If I jump back into here, I should be able to catch the build. Build's in progress, so yay, that's working. Click on it. At the end of the build report, it'll actually, if you scroll down to the bottom now, it'll actually tell you deploying, and it'll tell you what environment it's going to. Now, it should deploy to dev, and it should stop because I said I have to approve it before it goes to QA, right? Did I say should? It will. It will stop. It has to stop. It better stop. So when this finishes, we'll check that out.
So with the approval, I just recently found out that I've got permission to override the other two people who did approval.
Nice.
How do I do that?
How do you do it? How do you override the approval of the other two? Are you in the group? You are? So there's an option to say, how many people are in the group? Three. There's ways to set this up to say one of the three, two of the three, all three. So you could do the override by saying you're the one of the three. Or one.
It's already set up.
Oh, it's already set up.
Yeah, it's already set up. I just don't have been told that I have permission to override it. Because when I asked them to do it, they said, hey, we're busy, you can do it, just override it. I have no idea.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I didn't know you knew how to do that.
Does the request go to the other two?
Yes, they get email requests through Outlook Express.
And you want to override that, but you have to get the email request. You get an email request too.
Email request, right. I did mine, I did my approval, then I'm like, wait, how do I override their approval?
I see, okay.
I didn't know where to.
See, it depends how it's set up.
Okay, no,
I will have to look, yeah.
I can.
You Google it with Bing, right? Man. I'll stop talking about Java. No, I'm kidding, I use Google. So we'll look there because I want to show the approval process anyway, but while that's running, so this will be successful. We'll come back to it. Let's just look at release real quick. Of course, there's nothing here. This will be another minute here. So let's just go in here and look. If I added, you just want to click any one user. You three get a notification. As long as one of you approves it, it overrides the other two.
No, the way I understand is all three of us have to approve it.
Then that's this. Any order. Both me and Stacy have to approve this.
Okay.
If it's in sequence, I have to approve it before Stacy approves it.
Yeah, ours would be any order then, yeah.
Any order, but it's still all three.
Correct.
To be clear, okay.
Yep.
So it depends on what you want. Any one just means one of the three of you. All three, then there you go. Make it you first. Yeah.
Does CSPS have these kinds of pull requests, things like GitHub has?
Yeah, I'm going to show that next. Yep. It does. Yeah, it does. So notice the release is going. The first environment's going. I could look at it this way. It's saying it's just released. This is still a new release, but if I click the release itself and jump in, very much like the build, I can actually see it in action. So if I go to here, logs, it'll show me it's running on the agent and etc. Now this will stop and ask me for the approval to move it to the QA. In fact, it's part of the post-deployment case here. So if I go back to summary, I would get an email notification if I set it up that way. It just depends on what you're doing here, but not to mention if I go back to which one of these is dev? That one. If I refresh this, we should see code, yes? Because it deployed to dev okay. It's just waiting to go to QA. I might be pushing this a little quicker than it wants to do, but that's all right. You can tell it's jitting, so it must have worked. There it is. So it deployed to dev, just like it's supposed to. And the dev slot is here called DEV. Where'd it go? Did I leave Stacy in that? I hope I didn't. I think I got rid of it, right? Yeah. All right. Waiting for evaluation. What? I must have added something weird to this. Let me go ahead and remove the. I'll remove the approval so this goes through the last check in here. Oh, I had Gates enabled without anything. So I wanted to show that to you, so you know that it stalls. No. Pre-approval is okay though. Just me, not Stacy. Okay. What's cool about release management is I can just come up here and say, you know what, I don't want to go through the build because I already have a good build. The key with the release too is it's the same binaries built. You don't ever want to rebuild it, the app, to different environments. It's very important. Keep the exact same binaries. That's what release management can do for you. Here I can pick and choose and cherry pick which environment I want to deploy to. Maybe QA needs a new release or whatnot. I can also cherry pick the builds. Just imagine how powerful that is to go back in time a build or so that worked, that you know worked, because the last one didn't, and create. It'll go ahead and rerun that deployment. I see it's a little. We'll come back to this one. I want to show, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, build scripts now? In what? So you execute those to deploy your builds now, today? Yeah. Are those specific to your type of app, or can you use the build tasks? Right. So there's a way to build a custom task that's a wrapper to run your batch or your code, and it's in this workflow. And if you put that in the workflow, the release and build can keep track of the stats on it with approvals and whatnot. Everything I'm showing you works. So usually just take your code, if it's batch or if it's PowerShell or whatever, I don't know, without knowing more, you put that into the workflow. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to get back to that one. So let's go back to, if you noticed when I created that branch, remember that branch I created? And that was to work on something else. So if I go back to my Team Explorer here and I go into the branches, notice it's talking about there's a remote here. I thought I created it. Maybe I didn't. Didn't anybody see me create that? It's not helping anybody. I thought I created it under work. Yeah, that's what I thought. But I don't see it. Yeah, I thought so. If I look under code, though, I'm sure under branches it might not be there. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so I did create it. So how do I get that branch from Visual Studio? I can actually do I think it's called fetch. So fetch from Visual Studio goes out to Git, pulls it back down. Now I can say, hey, cool, double click that. Notice in the lower right corner of Visual Studio it tells you what branch you're in, so if you forget, you know where you're at. There I am. Now I can make another change to this. We just call it DevOps this time. And actually, the idea here is I commit this as well, but now I'm committing it to my init branch. We'll call it init. I can commit all and push. Now remember, that's just an init. The build and the release know nothing about this branch. This is my developer branch. So as John mentioned, how do I get that in? There's a thing called a pull request, which is also from within Visual Studio. I can do pull request. Now, here I can just click on new pull request. So as developers work in their own branch, you want to get it into master. So again, Microsoft works this way as well for our tools. Everything's built off the master. Master is gold. Nothing's ever broken, and we can always deploy at any given minute from master. And how do we do that? We make sure we have quality gates on the master branch. There's policies we can set up in VSTS to protect the master branch, and builds are off the master branch. So what I'm going to do is just say create a new pull request, which of course jumps out back out to where I was. And this is saying take init, upper left corner, and move it into master, right? Here's the description. I could type more if I wanted to. If I scroll up a little bit, same thing. How many reviewers are there? Anybody on the dev team here? I could type in my name again. Very similar to what you saw. Notice it's also telling me that we're correlating these two work items. And oh, by the way, here's the code that was changed in this pull request. You say, yep, that's cool, create that. Now it goes to the team, and they get notifications, and there's pull requests to go do. And I'm making this real simple, but generally speaking, there's at least 2 or 3 people that have to look at a pull request, or more, depending on the importance of it. Oh, I guess there's a conflict. That's okay. Abandon the conflict. Delete source branch. I love that one. I think because I have Visual Studio open on that other area as well. Anyway, you can approve the pull requests. You can make suggestions, but the whole idea is to merge the code together. That's what it's really doing. Yep.
Quick question. If your company's using Rally, will it integrate with like your user stories and things like that, or do you have to stick with Microsoft built-in workflow?
Well, when I showed that one diagram with all the plugins, I don't know Rally enough to know if they have a plugin to these systems. I know Jira does. I don't know if Rally does, but if they do, then yes, you can use that to track your work and feed it into Team Services. The whole point with Team Services is let you swap out the components that you want. That's the whole point. Yeah. So I don't know Rally well enough to know that. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. You're talking about specific to the work items tracking?
Well, if you use, like, it's very easy to swap out like the Git providers with GitHub Enterprise when Jenkins or Bill.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah.
Great. The work items still with like Teams.
Yeah.
Integrations with Teams are largely like just syncing.
Yes. Oh, right. Okay. I think I know what your question is. The I don't. So to answer your question, I don't have any recommendations. Use Team Services. I don't know. Jira, I hear that in customers a lot more than anything else. And Jira is something they're paying for. And Team Services is free, because most of the customers I talk to have MSDN licenses, so it's all free. So you're paying for one tool, you're not using it. Now, back to the question, Jira doesn't want to make, actually third parties, probably, this is Randy's opinion. No, third-party tooling probably does. They want the integration or the linkage, but they don't want to make it too rich of an experience now, right? And again, I know there's a connector, but I haven't seen it or used it to know, like, can you branch something back? And I can't imagine that working, how well that would work. Yeah. Probably not a great answer. Clearly, I have a issue with this, so I'll just abandon it. Normally that would have merged, and the master would have come over here and built. I'll have to figure out what happened here. And I'll just go ahead and, what I can do now is just say new build. and the process will happen, and we'll just talk about something else for a minute. So I can just say queue a new build here. When you merge from a branch into master, it would have queued this build automatically, and would have went on. Okay, so that's building. One thing I didn't talk about was the dashboard. So while that's building, we'll just talk about the dashboards. These dashboards are, again, the team dashboard. And this is made up of parts, so I can actually grab and move these parts around. If I wanted to edit, I can drag and drop these parts wherever I like. If I wanted to go ahead and configure these individual widgets, we call them, you can go ahead and say what's the query. Let's say it's my bug, and I want to make bugs red. I want to add additional things. If I can just click plus, we have widgets, a lot of widgets. So think of it as a marketplace, a library of widgets. For instance, one of the things I like is the build. So I can just say, add that. And another cool thing to add is we have test statuses, deployment statuses. There's a lot of widgets here. If you want to add something that you can't find, there's a marketplace. You hit the marketplace there. Now, this is also, very much like the tasks, contributed to by a third party in Microsoft. So you have all these different tasks you can add, functionality, it's all built in. Activity feed, if you want to do RSS feeds. So the dashboard is yours to make your own for your teams. That's what that is. I'll say close it. Now that I did that, I can go up here and say, show me my build history. It basically is asking what definition do I want to report on. I have one called CI. I'll just say that. And it gives me this nice histogram of my builds across time. Same thing with, if I move up a little bit, same thing with this. If I look at the deployment statuses, configuring it's easy. Asks me what build definition am I looking at, and what branch of code am I looking at. Well, it defaults to master, of course. And then what release area. So I'll just say all of them. And I'll save it. And what this will show you, again, landing page for your team dashboard showing me, or I gotta save it, I guess. I thought I said close, come on. It's trying to show you the builds across the bottom here, the releases. Normally you'd see the colors, so I don't know what's going on with that. Interesting. Okay. Let's see, a couple more things. This is getting stuck, isn't it? We want to see green. Build's probably still running, right? This was successful. It says it's queued. Okay. So the release engine's waiting. That's okay. As I mentioned before, there's many ways to do the same thing, right? So one thing I'll just point out where it's at. I won't actually do it for you here, but let's load this up. So I went to the VSTS to set up the builds and set up the releases, right? That's one way. I won't do this, but if you have, through extensions, you can install an extension for this. Is if I right-click on a project, a solution, you'll see this says Configure Continuous Delivery to Azure. It's a wizard. Same concept, except it does it for you. It fills in all the tasks and the blanks for you. So it's the second way to the easiest way to create this. Do it from within Visual Studio. Asks you some information, you click Go. And it creates a build, creates a release, and wires it all up for you. So nice. How nice is that? App Insights. Did we add App Insights? I thought I was going to show you and I forgot. Right-click on the app and say Configure App Insights. Now this is the wizard that just changed a couple days ago. Remember, we're going to collect telemetry automatically. All I need to do is say is get started. Sign into my account. Pick my Azure subscription. pick where the resource group is. We created a, this easy demo one, and then click register. And then it'll add the necessary NuGet packages to collect telemetry across my app. Who is using the app, how long they're staying on certain pages, are there any issues or exceptions in the app? If so, where are they from, what line of code were they from? All that is collected for free. Now it's telling me I'm 60% configured, which is great. I notice I'm in the init branch too. I didn't mean to do that, but okay. I can say, this is saying, hey, there's an SDK that's newer. When you want to install it, you say, yeah, okay, do it, and it just does it. So pretty simple as well. App Insights shows me a nice application map called well, it's not called code map, but it's called an application map to show me the hits on the site, performance issues, dependencies across the map is nice. If I want to enable this trace diagnostics, well, why not? It's right here. You add App Insights and then deploy it. It's free. It collects. It's free-ish. It collects enough data, and it's a rolling window of information. If you want to pay for a month or 6 months worth of data, you can do that. But I think you get a month. I'd have to go on the site and look, but a lot of this stuff is free for sure for small stuff like that. Now, ideally, I'm going to say commit and see what happens here. I'm going to see if I can just cheat and go right to master. Added App Insights. And say commit and push. So, of course, master's out there now. Build will be working again. See, once you wire it up, then you just start iterating over this. And I don't have to worry about the pipeline anymore. It's built. That's the whole idea here. You see it's in progress. I can click on that. Now it's deploying the app with any changes I had, plus the App Insights piece, which is nice. And I'll just show you where it's exposed on the portal itself. Once this is done, let's see. I want to show you that. I do want to show you something else from the Azure portal while that's running. So we'll come back to this. How many people thought it was cool? I could right-click and say, build my continuous pipeline from within Visual Studio. Good stuff? Then you'll love what I'm about to show you. If I can get back to the portal. So in Azure, if you have an Azure subscription back in the Azure portal, I can go and search for what we call a DevOps project. This is a new thing. And a very cool thing, especially to get started, right? I can say, add a new DevOps project. Yeah, where'd it go? Sorry, right there. Wrong spot. Add a DevOps project. Click Add. This is like the ultimate wizard. What language do you want, right? You want .NET, you want .NET Core, you want Java, Node.js, Python. What would you like? Ruby? I'll say, .NET. And then it says, well, you want .NET or .NET Core? Well, how about .NET Core? And then it'll say, hey, where do you want to put it? You want to go to a web app, virtual machine. You can deploy to an actual virtual machine running IaaS. I can run it in a container. So spin up a container for me. This is like the ultimate wizard. I'll do a container just for fun. And then it asks me my team services account. I have an existing account, so I don't need a new one. I have a few, so I'll just pick the one that I'm using tonight. Give it a project name. My cool demo, I'll call it. Notice it gives it the website name, app, same name, and of course, where do I want to put it? I'll pick on East US 2 if I can find it this time, right there. So that's it, right? Pick a language, pick a platform, and say done. It builds out a team services account project. It puts the source code into the project, into Git, wires that up, builds the build system for you, builds the release system for you, and puts it into Azure for you automatically. So now it's deploying. So within 3-4 minutes, we'll have a web app running in a Docker container, fully source controlled, out that I can work on with a build, with a release. Now I can just work on the code. It's a great way to get started. Or if you want to see how Docker technology works, build it and go look at it. So pretty cool stuff. All that'll be done in a minute. We'll come back. The build's done, remember? So let's look at the releases are done. Ever since I put that approval gate on there, now this is not working anymore. You're killing me. Yes.
Hi. I've seen some analytics over there, like dashboards, more of a code performance, or we can also load data like from Azure and also do the performance app over the data.
Yeah.
Using those other, but I've seen there are other
Yep. No, that's a good question. I'll show you.
because I'm trying to figure out like how our project is fitting into this environment.
Yeah. What you're looking at here is so that's still deploying. I added App Insights to our test demo, but if the demo has to have traffic to collect telemetry, which we don't have, very hard to demo that from scratch. I have an application called Mercury Health that I'll just show you. Notice the My Cool demo is already popped up there. That's the ultimate DevOps wizard. Give it a try. It's awesome. You're asking about the data analytics piece. I must have slowed Azure down. Huh. Come on. What's going on here? Azure.com just can't cut a break tonight. Did the internet go down or something? Seriously. Anybody else have internet? I think the internet stopped. That explains my releases. That's why they're not working. I'm going to blame it on the internet. No. Anyway, when you create application insights, you add it to your app, it shows up here in the portal. The Azure portal collects all the telemetry from applications no matter where your app runs. Could be API calls, could be .NET calls, doesn't matter. When you click on it is the dashboard you're talking about. The idea here is from an application development standpoint and development team is to collect metrics on the app. How is it performing, right? Where is it performing well? What's not performing well? That's what this is. I can set time range up. This is that moving window I talked about. 30 days is a lot of data. 7 days. The more days you go, and again, how much traffic will depend on how much you collect. It's not that expensive when you had to pay for it, but similar to Google Analytics. And I think Google Analytics does a lot of the usage of the app, right? Well, App Insights does a usage of the app as well as under the hood, performance of the app and dependencies of the app, event calls of the app. Yep. So we have that here as well as the investigating piece, which is more of a development type of thing. So I can come in here and look. I get alerts. I get availability, which is huge. Is this app even available? Where'd that go? Availability. Do a pulse on the app. Is it even available? That's number one. Number two is, are there any failures? If there are, from where? I'm doing latency tests here again. I just add a test. I do a ping test, make sure it's around. I could also do a scenario-based test. Every 10 minutes, run all these steps that a user would typically do. I can run it from Europe and West US, and I run it all over the place. That's what this is. Is it available? Is it healthy? Is it performing well? So this shows me the performance across 7 days. I can look at, let's say, 7 days. Is the app performing? So this is what Application Insights does for you on an application. And I don't have anything special installed. I just said add it. I get performance. It shows me which events are performing well and slow, and allows me to drill into the specific line of code that might be causing this. App Insights. These are, These are part of the App Insights analytics. You can't change these if that's what you're asking. I'm just showing you a couple of the blades here. Search shows me everything that's happening on it. So this is really, think from an application development view of your code, that's what this is. Show me all the events, the dependencies, SQL calls. How many milliseconds are the calls taking in SQL Server? Which databases are they hitting? That's what this will do. Code profiling, that's what this does. If you want the basic stuff like the Google Analytics, there's the users here. So which users from where in the world are they hitting me? How long are they staying on my pages? Are they return customers? That kind of information is here. Yep. Yeah, it is, and it's tightly integrated with Visual Studio Piece as well. I don't know why this isn't. There's no data here. That's funny. What I want to show you is on. For which tool? I've missed the first part of that. Code analysis tools, yeah. So code, like static code analysis, is part of Visual Studio build process. There's a checkbox that says run that. In Visual Studio, if you created a code analysis with all those checkboxes that you look at, all I need to do is tell build to run that. It's just one check. And it runs the code analysis at each build before the deployments. It's part of it. Yes, it is. Build knows how to run code analysis on the code when it's building. It's also in Visual Studio in case you build it locally. It's there. But it's there. It's easy to access. Mm-hmm. It is available, yeah. Is it .NET code? Okay, good. Yeah, I'd have to find out what the task is called. I can give you, we can talk or give you my email. Whatever the task is called to run that code analysis, I think it requires Visual Studio's code analysis first though. And it's saved, I think. I'll have to double check. I usually run it from Visual Studio and then I have it. Another interesting thing here on App Insights, Application Insights is, notice this tick mark at the top? It's a marker. Every time we do a release deployment of code, it puts a marker in the Application Insights. Now, when I analyze performance data or usage data or whatever data exceptions or errors that are happening, I can compare it to the previous release, or does this new build break something, right? So I can, right from here, right from Application Insights, click on that release, and it shows me all the information about that release, what version of code it came from, and so forth. So again, all from Application Insights. So this wasn't an Application Insight talk, but I wanted to at least show it to you. And I can show you exactly, hey, we added App Insights, what did it do? I'll just show you the piece that's important here. So in an MVC app, a header file, this is the key, literally. I said add App Insights, it adds the JavaScript to my code, and all those pages of metrics that you saw came from just this. I didn't add any custom code. It collects all that performance and usage information, all this dependency and event calls. It's all just because of that key, because that key is tied to Azure, and that's my Azure portal when I said create App Insights. So it's pretty simple to get started. I mean, it might look like a lot of stuff you have to do, and at first it is, but once you do it once or twice, it's like, okay. So I think that's all I wanted to show you. There's other cool little tools, but we'll call it. Let me go back. I just want to see that release work yet. Nope, still says queued. Something broke that release ever since you asked your question. I'm not blaming you. Yeah. Clearly, I can't do it. So it's still queued. I have no idea why it's not working. That's too funny. Too funny. Yeah, so I think that is all I have. I want to show you the resources. I mentioned that, didn't I? Training resources. I wanted to show you, where's it at? Must be in another. Yeah, we'll call it this. This is a cool training course. It's free. It's not. Anyone use Pluralsight? Okay, Pluralsight's great too. It's videos, you watch them, you learn, absorb. This hands-on, this self-paced. It's totally free. It's not just Microsoft, but if you wanted to learn something like DevOps, let's just say we learn DevOps. Just type in DevOps. It's called edx.org. These courses are self-paced and free, and I can go in and learn things that I want to learn. This is our #1 site that we point customers to as well. So our internal people use this site.
Do they have an app for like Play Store or stuff like that?
I don't know. I don't know. I just, yeah, I don't know. It's a great question. I just started using this site. See, here's DevOps for developers. Get started, and you go into these courses. Now you can learn anything. This isn't just Microsoft stuff. I can go Visual Studio. I can code analysis. I can look at Azure. It tells you how many hours it is, right? 2 or 3 hours a week. Want to get certified? Then it costs money. If you don't, and you want just the training, it's free. So I think it's a pretty cool thing.
They do.
What's that?
They do.
Oh, they do. See? We all learned something. Well, Pluralsight's also included with MSDN. Pluralsight's good. I use Pluralsight too. What I heard about what I heard about this though is it's self-paced, so you can pause it and actually it requires you to do some hands-on. Like go, and it gives you some pseudo instructions. Go do this, 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 and this. And you go do it, and it'll check to see if you did it sort of correctly. Yeah, I haven't tried it. I've heard good things about this. Coworkers have gone through this and said, so I'd say for free, it doesn't cost a thing, just give it a try. edx.org. Yeah, edx.org. Also, let's finish the, this slide deck, if you wanted to look at it twice, help yourself. I'll post it on teamsystemcafe.net. If you just do a search for DevOps, I'll make sure the slide deck gets up there. The one that's up there is a little older. If you wanted to see it twice, resources are here as well. VisualStudio.com, get started with team services for free, right? Sign up, invite 4 of your friends. Great stuff. VisualStudio.com DevOps is where you're asking about how to get started with some of these things. The walkthroughs, the hands-on. If you don't find it, email me at Team System Cafe. My email's there. Or rpagels@microsoft.com works too. But let me know. I also put the link to the EDX here as well. Any questions? Any other questions? I like questions throughout too. That worked out well. Yeah? The logical container of the, yeah.
Moving to Visual Studio Team Services, how best to break it up? So like we've tried it where put teams of people as the project, and the things that they're working on a project that ultimately become products, and the ownership of those services ends up moving around. It becomes difficult to move those things. We've tried making it where the project is more the services or group of related services, but it's managing the people, moving people around, and making sure people have the right permissions. And then two, like a lot of companies kind of like go inner sourcing, like Microsoft, like, hey, everyone can kind of see what everyone else is working on.
Yeah.
You can make a PR at something against something that's not in your area, and you may not have like employ it. And the project, so put everyone into one, everything as one project.
Yeah.
Up, like out of implementations you see.
Lately, I've seen it where it's more flat. So there's 2 ways to create. I mean, there's 2 ways, and there's some docs out there, but there's 2 ways to create that. I texted you, didn't I? No. There's two ways to create docs out, or docs. There's two ways to create projects out there. So individual projects are, like you said, projects, and you have to assign people to them. And then if you hop around, it's a little more difficult. Another way is make it more hierarchical, where you have a department or a IT area, whatever you call it, that works on multiple projects. All those fall under as child projects to the main project. That way, when you add someone, so if you have someone, a developer that moves around from project to project, you're still under the same umbrella. That's more common than I've seen.
That's my next question. Is PSCS is getting better and better at allowing you to reuse like variable groups or task groups or things like that. And what we were looking for kind of a way to still split things up by project, but be able to take those to share things or like even just service endpoints that we want to kind of make more globally available across multiple projects rather than have to configure those services across the project. Would hierarchical projects allow us to do that?
That would actually, yeah, because those are stored at the parent level. Yeah. See, there's pros and cons, but yeah, those would. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions?
One quick question, when you were showing the app inside, there was app maps. So basically that maps to different resources your app is coming out.
The application map will show you the dependencies like the web front end, any of the events it's calling, any of the website tests that are calling it, and then it shows the flow into any of the the controllers of MVC, and then it shows the flow into what databases it's calling and how long each of these processes take. That's what the map would show. Yeah.
Something breaks, it shows that, the communication breaks between the web server and the
Yeah.
database. It shows that also, right?
Yeah, you could just actually, it's a live map. You could have to live map, it'll be a bubble that'll turn red with a number in it for the number of incidences that it happens to have. So red's not good. If it turns red, you can click into it, and it's deep links when you click. It goes into what the problem is. So that particular app I load test every other day, I think with 500 users, just to collect metrics from around the world, and I collect metrics that way just to have, I should mix and match some errors in there, but that's it. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Yeah. So it's all, App Insights is all about that application. It's all about application insights. Go figure. Yeah. It's one of the Azure telemetries, because the other half of that is infrastructure monitoring, and those worlds are coming together. So, any other questions? I know we're at 8:11. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you everyone for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay.
That's a wrap.
He's handing out tickets for swag. We have swag. Quick important note before we get on with the important part. Does anyone here wear children's t-shirts? All right.
Yeah,
The lovely